It is 6:40 and we are going to go ahead and call this special meeting to order. I would like to welcome everybody. Hope you all are having a good night, and we are really hoping this meeting goes much better than the last one. Working out the kinks. Justin, do I need to recall that? I just seen where you just started recording. The meeting was called to order at 6:40 p.m. So with that being said,
No, you're good. I got everything.
Okay. So at this time, we are going to do a moment of silence and then the pledge. During this moment of silence, Mr. Christie notified me today that we have 3 seniors that will be leaving for the military sometime within the next week or the week after. They're going to go ahead and be shipping out. So I would like to ask you all to remember them, their families, and be thinking of them as they're preparing to go on this journey. And now the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Item number 1, review of the agenda. Does anyone have any comments or anything? It's a special meeting, so obviously nothing can be added.
I have folks prepared to speak on the things that you all asked us to come prepared to talk about, that being the calendar, the funding, where we are on our funding for this year, and also the discussion about a virtual graduation. So we're lined up to speak about those 3 things.
Okay. With that being said, would anybody like to make a motion to adopt the agenda? Mr. Thomas, did you have something you want to say? You're unmuted.
I do. Did you include on this agenda, and I apologize, the provision that says that we are doing this meeting in conjunction with the Attorney General's provisions that allowed for, under the Kentucky Attorney General's Opinion 20-25 that was issued on March 18th, which said that we should consider memorializing in its minutes the reasons it's not feasible to meet in a physical location. So because this is still part of our COVID-19, and although the governor has outlined some type of plan to start normalcy, at this point, we are still in a declared state of emergency, and it's not feasible to meet in a single location. I just think we need to make sure that that's recorded on our minutes.
Thank you.
Mr. Thomas, can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Christie mentioned that there was 3 things you wanted to talk about. The middle one was funding. Do you think that's broadly included in the agenda wording?
If the funding is related to one of those events, I think that it is. If it's some type of separate funding, then I think that we probably need to hold it off to a different.
It's funding, it's discussion of funding as we are in this event right now, and where we're looking at because of the closure and everything, where we are as far as expenditures at this point.
Will it have any impact on our virtual graduation or what we're going to be doing, or is it, because I think if I recall what the chair had put in there, it was to discuss end of year events. And I apologize, I don't have my agenda pulled up here.
And end of year events, end of year events. And it's an end of year event, but I think because the reason I included it was it's going to impact our funding for the remainder of this year and what we do over the summer. And then it's also about carryover, and that kind of, it's all the funding based on the shutdown and the things that were the events that this end of the year. So it's not anything that takes an action, but we don't have to do it. You all got all of that.
Well, Mr. Heisel, I've looked this up. It says discussion and consider approval of end of year and end of year events. So I think it would be appropriate to discuss, but I don't think that we need to take any action on the funding or the financial situation of the school at this time. But I think we can clearly discuss it, Paul.
That sounds good. I just wanted to make sure I knew the parameters so we wouldn't get into trouble.
No problem. Thank you all.
Okay. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda as written.
Okay, motion by Mr. Heisel,
I'll second.
second by Mr. Talby. And we will continue on with roll call votes. So District 1,
Yay.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
and District 5 is yes. So motion carries 5-0. Okay, item number, or public comments. Paul, do you have any public comments?
No, I do not. No one gave me anything or requested anything for this evening.
Okay, thank you. Okay, item number 3, discussion and consider approval of end of year events. Paul Christie.
I think the first thing that probably we need to talk about is the end of the year. As you're aware, it's passed now to and KDE is approved and is in fact recommending that as schools get to, they reach the 1,062-hour mark that they consider end of year classes for students. We'll hit that mark. We'll pass that mark on May the 5th. And it was my recommendation, and we're prepared to talk about what that will look like for students from May 5th through May the 27th. I think graduation was scheduled to be on May the 28th, Friday, I think. And that's what we plan to do. You'll hear more about that when we talk about the virtual graduation. We plan on airing that and having that happen on the regular graduation night at 7 p.m. If you want, I can tell you if we end classes for the students on the 5th, and I'll ask Greg. I think he and I have gone through this and met with principals and admin. I'll ask him to unmute and I'll let him go through what our plans at this point are, and then I'll chime in if I need to on some things.
Okay, so what we were putting into place to present to you tonight was if we were following kind of what the Commissioner of Education and Governor were discussing about ending classes once we hit the 1,062-hour mark, as Mr. Christie said, that we reach and surpass that mark on May 5th. So the plan that we were discussing and putting into place for tonight was to have the work stop on May the 5th, if that's the direction the board would like us to go. Give May the 6th, 7th, and 8th for plenty of time for students to complete any outstanding work and get that submitted. And then that gives us a really unique opportunity that we've never had before. We still have our staff in place. They're under contract until May 27th. So what we were putting into place is the idea of being able to provide remediation, pre-summer school, enrichment in different forms to where we actually have all of our staff under contract, through this time period. So being able to take the expertise of great teachers that we have in this district and great minds, and really being able to put a blitz on some of the students who may have struggled through the course of the year, not just the last little bit, but may have had some issues all through the course of the year that could use any type of remediation with summer school. We're still, things like that are still on the table for what we can do. But, traditionally with our summer school, we have a very scaled back staff. And so with this time frame right here, we have 2+ weeks where we have every teacher in the district that's available. And we could even look to see, how that looks. It may not necessarily have to be a GRC teacher working with a GRC student who could use some enrichment time. They could be working with a justice student or a concrete student or an RDC student or whatnot. We have a lot of options, I think, that are on the table with that. And then using this time, like I said, as both remediation and also enrichment for students looking to maybe get ahead with some things, and we can do that virtually. There's just a lot of options that we have. And then that runs basically through the 27th. So those were some of the ideas that we were kind of pondering and discussing, and really trying to provide the wraparound services that we can for these students who have just had any type of difficulty throughout the course of the year. And we thought that that was something that was important to make sure that we could do. And as I said, we've never had that opportunity to have this many staff members for this period of time to be able to do this. I'll go ahead and mute.
Like Mr. Holland was saying, we're kind of in a unique situation and can do some things that we don't have the opportunity to do as we end some years. But our thoughts and our process of discussing this and working with the administrators is the one thing that everybody was together on. If we want to use this opportunity to make sure that no student suffers loss of credit or loss of grades because of not being available at school. When we get down to the end, especially with those that we're trying to do the remediation with, you're going to get down to a much more limited number of students, which will allow teachers to work more one-on-one. If we have to get down to FaceTime individual students, we can do that. That's something that you would only have that kind of opportunity if you had the kids in class, and we don't. But this is a way that we can focus on those who may be struggling and maybe get them up to speed. And I think it's out of fairness to the kids. Our goal is to not have anybody fall behind on any more than we have to by not being in class, but anywhere on their grades or anywhere on their promotions or anything because of this this mess we're in right now.
Did anybody have any questions to go along with that?
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions.
Okay, go ahead, Gordon.
I guess, I understand about having students and working with students. I guess I don't understand our need, and I guess I want to clarify too that Mr. Christie made the statement that the governor recommended 1,062 hours. Is that true that he recommended, or he just said that we could?
They said, they made the statement that we have to get to the 1,062. And at that point, it's up to you guys if we want to end the school at that time. They're even making arrangements for districts who can't reach the 1,062, but I think they've got it worked out now to where all districts are going to get to the 1,062. So it was their requirement to get to 1,062, and I guess his recommendation may have been not the right choice of words, but it was their requirement to get to 1,062, and it certainly is up to you as a board to decide on what day you actually end for students. Our last day for teachers, closing day would be the 27th for teachers, but per their contracts.
I think my biggest fear, I guess, or whatever, of closing as soon as possible are the communication issues of making sure that everybody knows everything that's going on. Just by talking around, I don't really believe that most people know exactly what the plan is right now. I think that's an issue. Basically, nothing will change for teachers or principals that I can see from now to the 27th. Is that correct? I mean, you're not having anybody else in the buildings. They're not doing anything different. It's only that we're going to make every attempt that we can to make sure that students are successful.
Correct.
And see, I guess that's the only thing that I don't understand. And in some of my private conversations, I guess, with you, is just, I just want to know what is the benefit for us to do this on the 5th as compared to doing it on the 10th or doing it on the 15th. There's no end of year events that anybody has to to try to get in line, but there are a lot of things I'm sure that principals are still going to plan on giving out awards, scholarship awards, and achievement awards, all those type of things. And I just think if you put it on the 5th, you've rushed a little bit, and we're not able to communicate that plan to our parents.
Well, I'm gonna jump in here on you, Paul, for a second. I can tell you, Gordy, from a parent standpoint, parents are very overwhelmed right now. And at this point, I'm still trying to finish up packets from the week before, because there's 4 kids. I'm trying to teach 4 kids, 4 different grades. And that's what I'm hearing from the majority of the parents right now is, how am I supposed to teach this kid, this kid, this kid? And I'm trying to get all these turned in right now, and I'm not going to have them turned in, and they're panicking. And I mean, it's getting to the point that I think your parents, they're not buying into it anymore, and your kids are tired. That would be my reason for wanting to go ahead and end it on the 5th. Get in what we can get in, and go ahead and let these kids. I mean, this has been hard. This has been really hard to do this from a parent standpoint.
Yeah, I understand that, and that's why I don't understand if we're rushing to get this in, then, and if we're not giving additional work, then they've got more time to get it in with teachers still at the school. I'm not saying by any means on the 5th that we load them down with another load of work. I'm just saying we've communicated to them that, you can get your work in at this time. And the way I understand it, that if they don't get their work in that time, they're still going to have additional time to continue on doing it. I mean, basically, when we end school anyway, I would think on the elementary level that when the last day of school's there, the last day of school's there. They get their report card that day and they go home, and then some of them come back for summer school. This is a situation where they've got a lot of time to be able to get work in, and to be able for teachers to communicate with them. Again, I'm not thoroughly against the closing it down on the 5th, but I do think that it really makes no difference when we do close it down, and it would give more time for communication if we did that, and people knowing exactly everything that went on.
Right. Well, we picked up what would be our final packet. If we closed on the 5th, we picked up what would be our final packet on Monday. So that would give us, 3 weeks to complete everything and get everything turned in. That would give you, and then that would continue on to, it'd give you about 2.5 weeks. But then you've already had them since Monday, so you've already had this week to work on them. And then that would give your principals and then your teachers that extra time to help the ones that need. I mean, I don't know. I just know that as a parent, I'm tired.
The reason for the 5th and giving that time is that gives us some 3 or 4 days where we can, at the end of that, by the 7th or the 8th, we can identify those students who have not completed work, and then we can start to focus on those. The longer we give to complete the work, the less the time frame is between the ending of school on the 27th with the teachers' contracts and when we are able to identify the students who have not completed the work. We also got to understand this work's coming in. It's not coming in checked or anything. It's coming in packets. Teachers we've got to look through some of this. We've got to go through some of the work with the students and to identify those that need and some things too. So that was giving them some time to look at it too, without more work coming in to be piled on top of that.
It's happened to stay closed up, Paul, for 7 days or 14 days before they can even start to go through it.
Yeah, and we're still waiting on some direction on some of that. Some of this coming in right now. They're not able to tell us a exact number of days. So we're putting things in containers as it comes in, sanitizing it, and it's staying sealed in a sanitizing canister of some sort, and that's where it is now. We're ready to start taking that out, and so that difference, like I said, between the 8th, that just gave teachers more time to go through that work and identify from the work that's being done any students that may be struggling at that time.
So, Paul, can you repeat that? Is the packets going into a container and waiting for 14 days before a teacher picks it up? Is that what you just said?
Yes. Yes.
And we've been doing that since we've been in, since, school's been remote?
Yes. And that was the directions that we had. That was what the directions we were given on what we should do for the safety of everybody, because at that time, and still to this time, they're not able to give us a definitive answer on how long a virus might live on paper or that kind of thing. So that was the reason for doing it in the beginning. And we've just stuck to now we're starting to pull stuff out and other stuff's going in and that kind of thing. We're rotating some things.
So you're saying if there's packets delivered from students to the school the week of, say, the week of the 4th, okay? That 4th or 5th day, or even, April 30th, you're looking at 2 weeks, which would be the week of the 18th, before the teachers would even be able to open the packets and grade them?
No, I'm not saying that they couldn't. I'm saying that we've been doing that up to this point. Now, I'm hopeful there's going to be some more guidance and somebody will tell us that it doesn't need to stay quarantined for that long, but we're still working through that. But
as it stands today, that's what.
As it is right now, it's staying in there for 2 weeks.
Okay.
What is the high school doing? Are they doing the majority paper handouts, or are they doing the majority of their work online? Bill, you may know more about that. I mean, I don't know.
Well, I know Chase has a little bit of both, so, I don't, it's probably dependent upon the courses. I would say someone on this call would probably have more insight.
The high school probably tends to have a little more of the online type things because a lot of their classes lends itself better to that.
This is true. Is David?
Yeah, I'm here. When we originally started, I guess, back when this first began, we did a survey with kids and tried to come up with a number of the kids that we thought or had online access. And at that point in time, and I will be honest with you, I think it was an oversight on our part. But when we asked kids, do you have access, internet access, whatever, we ended up with somewhere around, 80, 82%, 84% of the students said yes. Well, what we failed, when we say internet access, we're not just thinking in our minds, we weren't thinking cell phones. But the kids, a lot of those kids that responded were referring to cell phones, not Chromebooks, laptops, whatever, computers, at home. So as we've gotten farther into this, we've been mailing out more and more packets every week. So I think probably what we thought was originally around 82% that could do it online is probably down more to, I would say, mid 50s, high 50%. So, we've mailed out a lot of packets. We did, myself and the other assistant principals ourselves went through all the first round of work that we collected on Monday, which took over half a day to do. And sorted it by teachers' names. Now, there was some students who didn't follow directions, didn't put the teachers' names on it, so that's still there's a small stack of that has to be assorted because we're going to have to pull up kids by name in IC and figure out what class they were taking to determine what teacher to send that work to. But, the internet access is becoming an issue for us as we're mailing out more and more packets. So.
Also understand that as we entered into this, and the kids were the first ones to come out of the schools. And probably 2 weeks into that's when the businesses and everything started shutting down. And now, instead of having just 2 or 3 kids at home that needed computer access, now mom and dad needs computer access for work. So now you've got 3, 4, 5 people fighting over one computer. So that slowed some of the things down. And that, I think, was one of the factors that increased the amount of requests for paperwork across, not just at the high school, but all across. We had a lot of middle school Baker students that were doing a lot of internet type things, but their numbers have increased, and I think that was a contributing factor to it.
I'll throw in there too. I've gotten several emails from parents about limited data plans. They've early on in April, second week of April, they pretty much already used up their data plan for the month. So it's been a learning curve for all of us, and God help us if we don't have to start out this way in the fall. But if we do, we've learned some valuable lessons.
Mr. Peridot, were you suggesting that the end of the school year be a little bit more flexible and maybe push it to a week later, but give teachers the chance to decide when their classwork would wind up, depending on their own particular needs?
Well, I think somebody, has to make a call on when classwork is going to end, especially if we're doing something that we have to wait for 14 days to be able to check that. My biggest thing is that, we always seem like we're behind the curve when it comes to communicating things out into to the community. And I just want to make sure that we have talked to all of our principals, that we have a plan together. I mean, I almost expected that we would have a written plan given to us before this board meeting so we could kind of see how everybody was going to do this, because I think we are going to have to give something out to parents. And I'm just afraid that if we end on the 5th, that some people are going to get left out on what needs to be done. And again, I don't see any different. I mean, I think every principal, every teacher has been operating the same since probably the 16th of March, I guess. And they go to school when they can. Principals go, I guess, and answer phones and do what they do and try to hold off all the parents that are calling in and the questions that they have. And I don't think that's going to change all the way through the 27th. So my only thing is, and again, I'm not dead fast against anything, but I'm just afraid that the communication piece of this may get left out. And, I know Miss Ritchie said something about everybody feels rushed to get stuff in. Well, I don't really understand. I don't have kids right now. I'm just trying to think of this from an old principal's point of view and how much information we need to make sure that we get out to parents. But maybe they have met with all the principals, and maybe principals have communicated with all their staff, and all their staff has communicated with parents, and we're ready to go. But I'm not sure we're there yet.
We certainly haven't communicated with any parents or anybody about an ending date. And that's, as soon as we know when that is, whether it's the 5th, the 15th, or the 25th, that we're going to get, within the next few hours. Tomorrow I have plans for the staff, and we have a staff meeting on Monday, and I could either move it up and do it tomorrow night. We're going to get something out with a schedule on it, whatever is, if it's determined tonight what that schedule is. That'll go out in writing to parents with the time frame to complete the work, the additional time to complete any lost packets or behind packets, and then the time frame the teachers will be working with students that may be struggling, or if there's having some difficulties, we'll put out the contact teachers, and the teachers will be contacting them. But we've not put any dates out there with anybody. Right now, it's still whatever it was before the 27th, whatever it was before is where we.
Well, I understand that, Paul, but you say you haven't communicated with parents. Right now, parents are pretty much convinced that it's the 5th. I methat that's out there already. Communication can be formal communication, or it can be informal communication. And that's the part that we have to combat as a district, is to make sure that we're out in front of the informal communication, so that people don't begin doing things that get alarmed, or rumors start going around. I think everybody got probably emails the last time about not calling off graduation, and that wasn't even on the agenda the last time. So apparently that rumor got out there somewhere. And that's what I'm saying. There are things out there that I'm not sure that we've addressed yet, that I'm not sure that we're going to be able to address before the 5th. But, if you're confident, your principals are confident that they can do it and communicate it and not have issues, then it's going to be tough for me to argue with that. But that's the biggest issue that I have right now.
My conversations in administrating, we've not really pinned dates. We've had some conversations. I think that any of the principals, all the principals from every building is online with us tonight. So if any of them want to chime in, you certainly ask them questions, how they feel about it. We have talked about it, and this is a plan that we felt like as administrators that this is something that we could do, and it could be the most benefit to the kids. So that's what we were looking at, was giving that. My main thing was to give that extra 2 weeks in there where teachers could reach out to kids as they're getting the work in. They're seeing that a kid may be struggling, or a kid's grades. I don't want kids to suffer grade wise because of us not knowing how to do this like we should maybe, I don't know. And that we felt like as administrators and the principals, and we talked about that extra time in there to do that extra work. But like I said, all the principals are on. Feel free to ask any of them, any questions you might have.
Well, I'll take your word for it. If you tell me that you've talked to all your principals and all your principals thinks the fifth's the best option, then, it's tough for me to argue with that.
And I was thinking of the teacher, when we've talked about this too, the conversation was there about the teachers too, giving them a fair amount of time to go through this and help identify any students that may be having some problems too. They need some time to do that. And if there's work continuously coming in, that's not as, it's hard to identify who's behind when your deadline isn't till later next month. If you may see what I mean.
Yeah, can I chime in just a minute? Just as a parent at the high school, would it be feasible for us to give a list of dates to the parents, and on that list of dates say, this is whatever date that we choose, that this will be the date that you need to get your work turned in, and then this will be the date that the stuff will be graded, and then that lets parents know that if there are things that need to be made up, that the children have an opportunity to get those things turned in.
That's exactly what we were wanting to do. In addition to that, when the teachers, even if the parent doesn't contact the teacher sees the work in the teachers, and we would put that out in the notice to the parents too, that the teachers will be reaching out to work with any kids that may be behind. But if they feel that their student is behind on some of the work and they need some extra time, these teachers are going to work with them to do that. And that communication will go out as far as when we've got the dates and the deadlines, and the building principals are working with the teachers to ensure that their contacts, we've got contact logs of how we're contacting, who we've talked to every time we've talked to them. So, and we'll continue to do that. And based on those conversations, plus the work that the teachers are seeing, that gives them a better idea of who they need to be contacting, who they need to be working with.
I would just be afraid or caution maybe that, as a parent, if you hear, well, the last day is May 5th, then you panic a little bit because you think, okay, well, that's 2 weeks away and we've still got work that needs to be completed, and we're not really sure where we are on the grades. That I'd like to see them posted, and then as a parent, I can get in there and take a look and say, okay, well, he's missing this, or we need to get this turned in, and that would ease my mind as a parent.
I know teachers and some of the other principals may want to click on if you feel the need. They're checking, they're already entering work. They're putting work into Infinite Campus. So it's starting to show up as they're starting to look at these things now. They're starting to put things in. So there's going to be more of that showing up. And I think we would have to be, to your remarks, we would need to be real thorough in our communication and helping parents understand that that's the last of the work. That's the last day that students will be assigned work. And from that point on, it's makeup and it's working with students on individual basis. But the actual year is not going to end till the 27th. It's not going to, and the grades won't go out until after that. So we've got until that time.
Mr. Christie?
Yes.
I'm sorry. It was hard to get in, and I apologize for interrupting. Having talked with the elementary principals over the past few days, we really wanted to try to nail down when our official last day to turn in. We want to have a date so we know when we can advise parents, this is when your work is due. However, let's say you haven't turned anything in so far, we can kind of give like a grace period, if you will, for, parents to kind of, they know the end is coming, but we can kind of give them a grace period. If they still have some things that need to be turned in, they can get that done. Does that make any sense?
In actuality, that grace period is from the 5th to the 27th.
Okay.
In reality, that's what that period is, that difference of time. If the 5th was the last day, that there would be no more work assigned after that, then they would have, we've tried to put the date like we talked about. I mean, we've tried to put a date so that the parents knew when they should have the work turned in. The students should have the work turned in. That's not a drop dead date that we're not going to accept anything after that. That's just a date that we're shooting for to have the work turned in. And if there are problems, then when we need to have the conversation, the teachers needs to have the conversation with the students about on what they need to get caught up or get completed or get the understanding.
Yeah, that sounds great. As long as we communicate it that way and it's clear, I think that'll be a big help.
Where will this put you, Dustin? I know you're on here.
Here I am.
There you go.
Yeah.
No, I think a lot of, there we go. I'm in my Browns jersey waiting on the revitalization of the Cleveland Browns. Maybe I'm not that bright. I've been rooting for 25 years. We'll see. For me, really, it's really more semantics. I mean, as long as we're giving kids the opportunity to turn work in, that's where parents are going to be worried. I think I have a lot of parents that on both ends that want more work. And then I have other parents that are scared to death. They don't know how to teach their kids from home, even with support. I think for us, the most important thing, in my opinion, is to define when we're not going to give any more work. If parents know no more work's coming, I think that will put a lot of minds at ease. And I also think the more time that we can give them to turn it in, the better. I know that with our building, I went through our packets on Tuesday, the first ones that came out because they've been quarantined. We identified who had completed them. And that list went out to all of our staff on a Google Drive. So our staff are now putting in grades based on completion currently so that we can identify kids that don't have any work in, whether it's a packet or online, because we're blended. And I know Mr. Boland eloquently talked about our learning curve, about the number of access. We did the same thing interviewing kids. The other thing we found out is even though if they have access, parents trust packets more than they do their kids talking about completing the work or understanding how to work Google Classroom. So, we're prepared at RDC to get work in for the first 2 weeks now. We're currently quarantining the work coming in for another 2 weeks. And then we'll have to quarantine the next batch coming in for another 2 weeks. So we have the list to start targeting for 2 weeks out. That leaves us a month left of getting work in. Again, I'm a dad. I've got a 7th grader and a 6th grader. So I'm wearing 2 hats right now. So for me, I'm good either way. I do think that parents would appreciate not being given a grace period, because I think if you frame it that way, in my opinion, you've done something wrong, right? Everyone else has it in and you don't. And I don't like that messaging personally, if I'm speaking candidly. Whereas if you put a date out there a little farther, knowing no more work's coming, you haven't done anything wrong because you're limited with your access or with your level of support, and I don't want to marginalize anyone in this deal. I think that could be dangerous, to make people feel like somehow just because they don't have their work in on that final date, they've done something wrong. So those are just kind of my thoughts, but I feel like we're pretty ahead of this as best we can be. So I'm going to stop talking now so I don't ramble.
So I'd like to add just one thing, kind of goes with Ms. Richardson and Mr. Peridot and even Dustin. I think that the communication needs to have it needs to be specific. So everyone and the parents, everyone knows specific dates. I like to see a specific date on when the teachers will have the work in parent portal so that parents can check and have a couple of days, to verify that something that get misplaced or something got missed or something of that nature, and not wait till the 27th for grades to be put in and then it's done and the parents don't have any recourse. So I know we're in a, unique situation. So it'd be nice to see a specific date that we're working toward where parents can go and check and make sure their kids' assignments, got to the teachers and everything is good. So I like to see that in communication.
So this is Scott. So I'm wondering, we've got the one concept of saying the end date is May the 8th, and then we have a concept of maybe we'll have a grace period, And they have an alternate concept of saying, well, maybe we need to give them a little bit more time than the 8th, but make that a harder date and not as much as a squishy grace period. Is that sort of where the discussion is?
Well, I'm okay with the 5th. I'm personally okay with the 5th if we have the amount of hours, as long as the communication when it goes out is detailed on what the rest of the month of May looks like, because that's what that's what we were looking at. What is the rest of the May? What does the rest of the month of May look like with the teachers still being under contract till the 27th? What are they going to be doing? I don't think, I would venture to say a majority of the parents don't know that the work packets are in quarantine for 14 days. I mean, they may, but I wouldn't be surprised at that.
And that's something you could even add on your communication.
Absolutely.
So that they realize it's not a grace period, but it's a formality that we have the things and we're just letting them go through the process.
And I know those 14 days may change, but right now that's where we're at.
Did anybody else have any more questions, comments? Any principals want to throw anything else in there for us?
If I can add, Ms. Ritchie, I think everybody makes valid points. I agree with a lot of what's been said by folks who have spoken. Honestly, I think this is a pandemic. I think enough's enough. I'm a pro-education person. I think I answer those phones every day at Baker, and I speak with parents. I speak with students who call. I speak with teachers on a daily basis. I think enough's enough. Do the 1,062. This is what I get. Now, the parents don't know about the 1,062. A lot of them, my staff does. And I do think that Ms. Richardson's right. You just don't abruptly end it on the 5th. I do think you build in days afterwards so that they can react and see the grades posted, as Mr. Christie said, and have them, don't even post grades or mail report cards until after the 26th or 27th of May. I think we've done our due diligence. We've done the best we can in the worst situation possible. And we've had to learn a lot of new ways to deliver instruction. And unfortunately, a lot of that instruction has fallen on the backs of our parents, who the knowledge, keeping as a pandemic, every packet that goes out, it has to come back in. You're having people get out to and from in the community, exposure, just keep those in mind. And we diligence and we've done the we can. If I had any dog in the fight, just based on who I've spoken with on my staff, I would go with May the 5th and then work with families thereafter to finalize the school year. Thank you. Any more questions? Paul, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, I'll just try if there's any other questions. Like I said, we're just looking for the dates that you all form so we can formalize a final closing on how we're going to do this. And we'll work with every principal together. We'll do this together, and we'll craft the communication so that the parents are hearing the same thing from every school. And we don't plan on ending anything before the 27th, even though there won't be any more work going out. If the 5th is the day that you choose, there would be no more work going out after that. And we would make sure that the parents understand the fact that when it's due, but if there are problems, we need to work with them, and we're willing to work with them, and we'll continue to work with them up through the end of the year.
Ms. Ritchie? You read my mind. I was just getting ready to call on you. Go ahead.
The Phoenix Academy, all of our seniors are finished. They have completed all their 25 credit on Apex, and they're ready for graduation and they're finished. Apex is a little bit different than other classes. When you finish the coursework, then you are finished with that class. So our 25 seniors we had 22. They are finished this year and completed. CATSAC, which is we're a member of CATSAC, we have to do 33 additional extended days. I got off a conference this morning with Ronnie Nolan, and we are allowed to submit a proposal to not have to do our 10 extended days that we have. We had 2 kids that were released from Fayette County Detention Center that are on an ankle monitor, and I was on a conference call with them the other day, and that student has not completed any work. So we have decided not to ask for an exemption for our 10 extra days. We're going to go ahead and have the Phoenix Academy open 2 weeks additional to support any kids that maybe we have another student who is in another state living with a grandparent. After this happened, the parent who was in and out of the house sent him to live with a grandparent. So we're in communication with them. Even though they're not even in this state, they can do Apex work at home or wherever they are. A lot of our kids, because of the internet access, have been able to take packets and take pictures of the work and send it back to their teacher so they can grade it. And it's a whole lot, we don't have to touch stuff. So we kind of came across taking pictures of it and sending it. And then a lot of our work that we send home, all of our teachers have a Google Classroom, and the kids are completing stuff on Google Classroom, so we don't have to have communication. But my teachers are communicating with our kids every week, but we will be open, whatever your all's last day is, 2 weeks after that to do our 10 extended days to help any kids that need any additional support. Teachers getting in touch. Like I said, the one kid's got an ankle monitor on. He's been very frustrated. He just got online the other day, but we're trying to get him some more credits.
Thank you, Ellen. Okay, Paul, with this, I know you've got several things you're going to be presenting. I know you're kind of wanting a deadline. Do we need to do a motion on this, or do we need to go ahead and present? Do you want to go ahead and go over your others? How do you want to go about this?
To set a date, you're going to need to have a motion and whatever that date's going to be to make it. But that's up to you, if you want to go on and look at any of the other stuff, if that would make a difference in your decision.
Yeah. I mean, the stuff that you're presenting, would that make a difference in the date? I mean, do you need?
The stuff that I'm going to present has nothing to do with the with the instruction, other than the graduation, the virtual graduation that we're going to present is going to be scheduled, I think, for the 28th.
Okay.
Ms. Ritchie, can I ask a question?
Sure.
So it seems like the dates we're talking about is the last day of school that's been proposed to be the 5th. And then Mr. Christie threw out that the last day to complete work would be the 8th. And then the third date that was thrown out would be to potentially keep graduations at 28th. So I want to circle back around to that middle date. Is it important that we say the last date for work that needs to be turned is the May 8th, or should we push that to the next week, or just remove the restriction from a district level as the last date that work has to be turned in, and just leave it up to the needs of individual teachers and their students?
What we're interested from you tonight is that last date for the last day of classes, actual last day of classes for students. The reason we said the 8th as another date, that gives us about 2 weeks for teachers to really go back and focus on, like I said, those that were behind and then those that are asking for enrichment. That gives some additional time in there. But actual official closing day for the schools would not be until the 27th.
But we could potentially say the last day of classes is the 5th and not even specify this 8th date. Just leave that out of
That's correct.
Of the stipulation.
That's correct. And we said the 8th, and that was just to put a date on for us. I think the principals, to them and to the teachers, anytime between the 5th and the 27th, that they can get work completed and they can get kids' classwork completed and grades for them. I mean, we can work without even announcing that second date, but we can go back and talk with principals about how they feel about the second date, or whether we even want to put a second date out there or not. If we just want to leave it open, there'll be no more assigned classwork from this point, and the last day for students would be the 5th, and we would like the work turned in by then, but, and then we can work with the principals and they can contact with, communicate with parents on how we're going to work with the students in each of the buildings to make up any work that may be still missing. But we're needing the first date before we can start to kind of put any kind of timelines together on anything. We need that last day of classes. And I think that last day, by putting a date on it, that puts that light at the end of the tunnel for parents and kids. That gives them something to focus towards. But the reason we came up with the second date, we just felt like having that second one in there that didn't. There's enough panic already without saying the last day of classes is the 5th, and that's when all the work's due. We wanted to leave those extra few days in there to give some parents and some kids to a little bit of a pressure relief valve to know that even though they might not have it by the 5th, that they're not going to be penalized. But still, I'm sure the majority of them will try to meet that 5th.
So can I ask a question? So today being the 23rd, so will there be more work assigned until the 5th? And you're saying the 5th is the last day that work no more work will be assigned? And
No, I think most of the schools have got their last set of packets out right now. They're out. So there would be no more go out. There's going to be no more packets go out. And the 5th would be the date that we would shoot for the students. If they could possibly have their work done, that's when their work would be due back. But then if you don't want to put out the second date, you don't think that we should be given, we'll talk with principals about that. And if we don't want to do that, then as a group, I just want to make sure that we're sending the same message all across the district. But with the understanding that every year we have last days, and we have when work is supposed to be completed by, but we find ourselves every year, especially with seniors, working up. I've worked with teachers and principal. David can verify it. I've worked up to a half hour before graduation getting work in. So we're always, even though there's an ending date, we're always trying to work with kids and parents to get work completed and get kids to make them successful. So that was the only reason for the second date, and that was to kind of give the teachers a date that they could know what's not here by the 8th. Now we know who is behind right now, and that's who we need to target.
I'll speak here for a second. We've got 5 seniors that are on our watch list that we're very concerned about. Luckily, we made contact with 3 of the 5 today. Found one of them in Louisville, of all places. But we want to try to make sure that all of the seniors graduate. That's our ambition right now. So, I feel we had 5 that we were really worried about. So today, I feel like if they'll do their part, we've got that list down to 2. But I do agree. We work up until the very last minute to try to make sure that they're eligible to walk across that stage.
Did anybody else have anything else they wanted to add? Because if not, I think right now all we need, they're just asking for a clear-cut day as far as, and Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, and then from there, you're going to take and work out a plan with your principals and put it out there.
Correct.
We don't have to set a second day and all of that.
No, you'll set a first day of when it's the last day for kids to attend or to work classes. And then the second date that will be the closing date for teachers, which is the 27th. And then the graduation, as we talked about, will be, I think, and I don't have my calendar, I think it's the 28th. I think that 28th is Friday. That's when it was originally scheduled.
Okay. So if nobody has any more questions or comments, would anybody like to make a motion to set the closing date for students and staff?
Yeah, I'll make that motion. I'll make the motion that the 2019-2020 academic school year end on Tuesday, May 5th.
Motion by Mr. Talby, and I will second that.
Could we say with closing day to be the 27th? Teachers
Oh,
Yeah, is that the student's last day is the,
turn in the work, but we're going to work with, and that gives us the rest of the time to work with students that may be behind or to do enrichment. We're going to use it as ESS time.
okay. I need Mr. Talby to clarify his.
Yeah, hang on just a second. I'll just amend it that the 2019-2020 academic school year end on Tuesday, May 5th for students, and teachers' last day will be on May 27th.
And I still second that.
Paul, is that wording sufficiently precise for your all's needs? Or
Yeah, I
Mr.
think
Thomas?
Mr. Holland, you, does that fit for the calendar change?
Yes, it does. That takes care of it. That gives us the finality that we need to then be able to amend the calendar and then have that submitted to the state when the time comes.
I just want to make sure the wording is correct on that. On
If Mr.
on May
Talby,
5th, on how we describe the May 5th date.
if he'll read again, if he would.
I'll read it again. The 2019-2020 academic school year for students will end on Tuesday, May 5th, with the last day for teachers, Wednesday, May 27th.
That's exactly the language. Yeah, that's exactly the language that we would need to amend the calendar. Yes, sounds good.
I just want to make sure that the term academic school year doesn't make people freak out and think they have to have all of their work done by that day.
We're going to communicate that.
That's what we're calling it.
Yeah, if we could just put in the statement, when we put it out to parents that, you'll have until May, I don't know, whatever day to turn in work and see their grades.
While we're here, and I've got all principals in the district that's on here listening to this now and hearing this now, we had an admin meeting scheduled for 2:00 on Monday. That'll change to 2:00 tomorrow. We'll get the communications going by the end of the day tomorrow. But I want all principals to come together to do the communication so that we're all on the same page, communicating the same thing.
Okay, I need to bring this back to Mr. Talby's motion, please. I need to do a roll call vote. District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
As long as the administrators think that wording is sufficient to communicate that that's the student's last day, I vote yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
and District 5 is a yes. So my motion carries 5-0. Miss Arlene, are you clear on all of that?
Yes.
Okay. All right, Mr. Christie, the floor is back to you.
Hey, Ashley, can we take like a 5-minute break real quick?
Sure.
Because I feel like we're probably going to be here for a little bit longer, so.
Yes, what does everybody, I guess, Justin, what do we do there? How do you do, just call it and leave it recorded,
Sure.
or how does?
Just do a recess.
Okay. We're going to do a 5-minute recess. The time is 7:38. Okay, we are back at 7:46 PM. And Mr. Christie?
The next thing I'm going to ask Mr. Bowling if he'll take the lead on this. We've been discussing the virtual graduation program and he's got some details to fill you in on that, on what we would be proposing to do.
Okay, up until probably for the last 2 weeks, I felt like, I've been hashing around some ideas about looking at doing some type of later graduation ceremony, but with what we've heard in the media, and particularly from the governor in the last 4 or 5 days, I've got to the point that I don't even think that anything like that would be realistic. So I've kind of gone back to throw around the concept of a virtual type ceremony, and here's kind of what we've come up with, or what we met. I had a group this morning. I had some representatives from Calvary Christian that was on board because they're, I guess, the site where baccalaureate was going to be. But I had Steve Crosby and a few other people there, and I had about some teachers from the school and some counselors and administrators on the call. But anyway, we kind of looked at baccalaureate will be done virtually. Calvary is going to take the lead on that. It's going to be a completely virtual ceremony. They have the capacity in-house there to do that themselves. It really won't involve anything from the school. They are going to look to, I think, with a couple of students, which will be done on an individual basis by themselves. No one else present will be either perform a song, do the invocation, benediction. It will all be taped and put together and will be live streamed on a date that we set. Originally we had a date set for baccalaureate. It is a little bit flexible right now as to what date that actually airs. In regards to graduation, we looked at the concept of bringing students in over a 3 to 4 day period, somewhere from like 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., allowing them to sign up for slots or scheduling them for slots on 6 to 8 minute intervals. Basically, they would come in to pull around to the back of the school, enter somewhere around the loading dock where the band room is, enter into the auditorium with their cap and gown. We're looking to allow, thinking they could bring in their parents with them, or maybe possibly 2 guardians. They would come in, there would be a teacher or staff member there. They would give them an index card, staff person will put their name on it, what their future plans are, and a little something special about the kid. As the kid goes in, entered into the auditorium with the parents, it would be given to one of the administrators who will actually, the videotaping starts, will call out the name of the student. The student will be able to walk across the stage in their cap and gown, pick up their diploma, and then as they exit, there will be a spot, a backdrop created, or an area, photo op area set where the parents could take a picture with their child. We were hoping to be able to publish those JPEGs where parents could print them, or possibly even print a 5x7 or 8x10 to give to the students. That's a possibility. And as they left the school, we were looking to maybe go ahead and do the yard signs. I think the district's bought yard signs, present those to the kids, as well as possibly some gift bags. I've been working with the Youth Service Center as well as Rebecca Miracle with Project Grad about trying to give them something. I know there's a group that's working right now to raise some money, and I've been on the phone with them this afternoon trying to clarify some things and making sure we're all on the same page. Our goal is to be able to make sure that even after we go through this quote, quote, virtual ceremony, that the students get something. They get a gift. Every kid that graduates is going to get something. But, let me back up. I'm sorry, I'm going to hit myself. But anyway, part of the virtual would be that it would all be compiled together into one video. We would still tape the welcome, tape the invocation, tape valedictorian, salutatorian addresses, as well as the benediction. It would all be spliced together into one video production. Any student that was not there or wasn't able to attend, we'll exhaust every opportunity to get a picture of that kid to put at the end of the video before it ends, that their picture and name will go across. If we can't get a picture, we'll at least have a name, recognize that student. I will point out, and I cannot say 100%, but I think we'll have to probably pay special tribute to one or two students who are not with us in this class, and I may be wrong, but I think this is the class that we lost a couple of kids out of 2 years ago. So our plan was to basically, we've got to distribute cap and gowns. I think all but 40 students had ordered their cap and gowns prior to this. They are at school. We were looking to try to distribute those towards the end of next week in a drive-up type scenario where they just pull up. They will reach their cap and gown to them. The kid will leave the campus. While they're there picking it up, we would ask them probably go ahead and try to do some sign-ups for times. At 6 to 8 minute intervals, we're looking at being able to do 10 an hour. So we're talking 3 to 4 days, realistically, probably 3.5 to 4 days to be able to accomplish this. But this would be something that at least we could do, to pay tribute to the students. I have talked to two ladies this afternoon who are very committed to trying to do something for this class, who have children in the class. And, I think we have to be very careful what we orchestrate outside of this virtual ceremony. But our committee kind of thought it would be neat if, some, we'll say some civic group, because I know we're a live stream here, or police organization took it on that might be able to do some type of processional for the kids potentially through town or through a couple subdivisions through town. And, that could be their processional. And then later that night, we would live stream the complete graduation ceremony. I know that's not, the ideal situation, but, we're open for suggestions, but I think that's, some of the best things we can come up with to try to pay tribute to the class.
This is Bill. First, David, I want to thank you for it's terrible time. I got a son, senior, so obviously it's close to home for us. But thank you for looking to put together this. I hate to still rule out an onsite at some point, but I know kids are going to be moving, and kids are going to start scattering. After graduation, they're going to go to military, they're going to go to college. It may be tough to get everybody back. You mentioned maybe only parents coming in. What is the limit to have people come in and take pictures? I mean, by the is it because I've seen other places say up to 4, but I don't know what the rule is.
Well, I don't know either. I mean, we just said 2. It could be 4 or 6. The big thing for us is just making it manageable.
Yeah.
You come in with 10 people and you want to do 10 sets of pictures after the end. We've got to keep you kind of flowing in order to stay on track. I mean, depending on, I guess, what guidance you go on. I mean, I think 4 or 6 might be manageable. Probably 4 would be great if we could do that. But I mean, it's just being able to manage it in the time constraint to make it work. I mean, I want to be fair to the kids, want to be fair to the parents, obviously, because I know it's a huge task. I mean, it's a huge event, and I've told the kids in my communication or tried to communicate, I never dreamed in all my years I'd ever see anything like this. I agree with you. I would love to say, yeah, we could do this in July, but in a full-blown ceremony. But right now, I just don't know that we can. I mean, who knows what's going to happen?
We know that we're going to go, if they move to that phase 1, that's gatherings of 10. So we're at gatherings of less than 10 in one space right now. And that's where we are when we're going to be doing this probably. I don't see us coming out of the gathering space for more than 10 to at least June, July. And at very best, maybe by August, we may be, hopefully it can be better. Maybe things will come along better than what they're expecting. But I'm worried about, I'm with David. I'm worried about what it's going to look like in August. We may be at best groups of 50 by August. And you got to remember, for when these kids are coming in for this to walk across the stage, if there's a student and 5 or 6 people, you also have a photographer in there. You have Mr. Boland, there'll be an administrator in there, there'll be a videographer in there, and probably somebody there to help hand out the gifts and the yard signs and things as they come out. So in addition to we're going to have probably 4 or 5 people there before they start to bring the kids through. So we got to watch and try and stay below that minimum or maximum of 10 people.
Yeah, but that 10 people, they're not all going to be in a close proximity. You can spread them out.
Exactly, true. And even the photographer and the videographer is going to be further than 6 feet away. So that there's going to be some spacing, but
Yeah.
I think and David, when we've talked, we just want to be careful. I don't think we're to the point to where we're back to that bringing 20 or 25 people with you when they come in.
Oh, I agree. I agree with that. I agree with that.
I tend to think too, if it could be something that's within one car, if you've got 4 people or something with your kid, with your child or something, or maybe 5. I mean, it's just got to be something logistically I think we can deal with, because when you come up, we were wanting to bring the kids in through around where the loading dock at the band room is, come in through the back door, and have you egress, leave through a different door. That way we minimize any contact with anybody else. Our plan is to have the doors propped open so you don't even have to touch the doors. You just come in, go out, and hopefully it won't be raining. But
We also plan to have all of our SROs on staff that day to kind of watch the parking lot, because as kids begin to gather for their time, if they get there early, then you got to worry about them getting out and start to congregate and going over to other vehicles. So we'll have our folks there to kind of watch the parking lot and make sure that there's no gathering or anything like that would put anybody at risk or put us at risk of being able to complete this.
Would you have somebody, I'm assuming you'll have somebody outside communicating with you all inside to let the students know, hey, it's clear to start coming in?
yeah, that's what we had planned. We planned to have someone there at the door, like second person comes in, you'll have one person go ahead and go on the stage in their part, and the second person comes in the door, they'll give the index card, get it filled out, and then as they go forward, it'll be passed on to, when the all clear is given, that group will enter the auditorium with the index card, and then, it'll take off from there. So it's not going to be, we're not going to, have any other group in the auditorium until the first group is exited.
Okay.
That sounds like a pretty interesting concept. I'm sorry, Mr. Poirier, am I jumping on you?
No, go ahead.
Okay. I spent a little time there in the band room, and unfortunately, there's not a man door that's near this. Well, there's one behind the stage, but the door to really get out by the loading dock is a big, 30-foot wide door. It kind of makes me wonder whether it might be interesting. I don't know if you thought about the logistics to do it inside the new arena, because that might make a neat background to have it there, because that's one of the things that this class could be proud of, is that we inaugurated that during their senior year. It's just an idea. It might give you more flexibility, more room to have spread people out.
I think the reason why we chose the auditorium was just simply because it has a stage. Otherwise, we're going to have to come up with a stage for kids to, I guess, technically walk up on. If you wanted to have, the one thing I've heard from most of the kids is they want to walk across the quote unquote stage. They want to walk up on the stage, walk across. I think that's the reason why we looked at the auditorium. And we were looking to come in probably, I think, through the double doors behind the loading dock. There's, we're talking about, and then come in backside of the band room, come around into the auditorium is what we were looking at. So, the gym is an option. It would allow you to space out. It's just, we're going to have a few more things if we look at that.
That could be a possibility, to exit through the gym and maybe create a photo op in the gym for the parent and the student as they exited. And maybe that could be the exit out instead of over there on the other side.
Or we could spot the money to do a stage at gym we were going to anyhow. So if we didn't do it, that'd be money saved. Just something to think about. I'm not sure you need to nail that down and decide it tonight. I just want to throw it out as a concept, since it's something neat that this class has that no other class in the last 50 years does.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the one caution I have is, we're looking, on paper, or our guidelines was, I think, trying to start May 7th, 7, 8, 9, possibly May 10. I mean, if we run into that, which I think, if I'm not mistaken, May 10th might be Mother's Day, and we were trying to avoid that if at all possible. But, we may have to come back with that 4th day. The only caution I have is just, how long, if we hire someone to come in and do it, or if we try to do this ourselves as far as video, and it doesn't bother me. I mean, I think we could actually do the quote, you come in, when you take up on the step, the video camera turns on, it may take 10, 15 seconds, 20 seconds while your name is called, and you're walking across the stage and all that. The one thing I will say is it's probably not going to be alphabetical. You got to understand that, because there's no way I can probably guarantee that every kid is going to come in there on time or sign up to come in alphabetical order. If we go outsource that, I guess technically they could do that, but it's going to be a whole lot more work to try to put each little individual video segment in alphabetical order. That's the big caution. And then the other thing is, I know when we when you go to set a graduation date, I think we got to be aware that, hey, that if we're putting this is a pretty good sized video, it's going to be put together. It's not necessarily at our discretion as far as getting it edited and put together. So it's going to be hard to say on a certain date that's when, quote, the video is going to air, if that makes sense. That's the one caution I'll throw out.
Well, I think we could, farm that out. I know there's a video service here in town that has done a lot of events for us, and they probably had that capability. We could farm it out, and they could put it in alphabetical order. But again, I'm not sure we need to get bogged down in the particulars of how that would be affected. Whether it would be in the gym or there in the auditorium. I just want to throw that out for discussion. I think the gym would be something neat. I don't want to beat that concept up, though.
You might have an issue of getting somebody there to set it up, if depending on if they're working or not.
Well, we got people working over in the field house every day.
I'm thinking of a small business, they may not be, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if it's, I understand the gym, but I don't understand, I don't know if it's, I don't want to get bogged down on that either tonight. I just don't think, cost wise, we're going to do this in an auditorium. It's already got stage. It's nice, very nice auditorium. I like Mr. Christie's idea where maybe you can, leave through the gym and have a photographer set up in the gym. To maybe have some pictures done, in there. But I'm not sure if we need to build a stage in the gym.
I agree, Bill. Gordy's been trying to speak too. Gordy, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, appreciate Mr. Boland's work on this. And I do think it's going to be a monumental task there to do to get those kids on a stage. You're saying, you're looking at, if you do all seniors, that's 36 hours, and that's if they all show up on time and everything goes. So I think you can almost account for a good week of that happening, because somebody's not going to be able to come, somebody's going to run late. I guess the thing I worry about there, if you're going to go professional photographer, we're going to have to go on their plans as well. I think from what I know about teachers and administrators, they'll stay the 10 hours there a day to get that done. I'm not sure about the professional photographers and what their schedule will be. The other thing, that comes with a price. So I'm not sure if you've reached out to anybody and talked to anybody about how to make this happen and what kind of obligation we would have from the Board of Education to try to make this happen and to work with you. I very much like a parade type of thing too, that you've talked about. I think that's something you would have to talk to the mayor about. I know I've talked to him a couple of times. I think the biggest thing you get from the city is that the same problem that we have, that it's really tough to allow any kind of a permit that's going to allow people to congregate somewhere. And I guess if you kept in neighborhoods and people stayed on their own porch would be one thing, but I'm not sure how that would work. But I'd say, there's a lot of particulars you'll have to find out in here. But I would say most of us would be willing to help out with those things, but I definitely check with those professional photographers and find out just exactly what kind of commitment they can make and if they'll get it all the way through, and then putting the editing together. I would say that, you know, if you started at the 1st of May, it'll take you close to the end of May to get all this done. And that would be a pretty lofty goal, I would almost think.
I agree with you. I mean, the biggest thing, and I know everybody would like to see it alphabetical. I mean, if it's not done alphabetical in the final product, it's going to be a lot, I think it would be a lot more economically feasible, as well as the turnaround time is going to be a lot shorter. Because when you start trying to edit 350 pieces of film or 65 pieces of film, then it's going to take a lot longer. You know, that's the big hindrance to me. I haven't reached out to anybody particular. I have had two local names mentioned to me. I have not contacted them because really I just wanted to kind of see where this concept would go before we get into trying to nail down any particulars or take it to the next level. But I do agree, it's not going to be something that's going to be turned around quickly. We're looking at three, like I said, three long days there guaranteed, and I know we're going to come back for a 4th because we're going to miss kids, and probably in the end we may do a 5th day, but there's probably going to be a few kids that we just totally miss, and it's just, I think, there'll be some that just really don't want to do it or don't want to take the time to come, go across the stage or be videoed. Like I said, we'll make our best attempt to have a picture of that kid at some point, and it'll be on the screen as well as their name.
Mr. Bowling, can I ask a follow-up question?
Yes, sir.
Or two? Would it be possible to incorporate awards into this same process where somebody would come across and they would get their diploma and they would get XYZ scholarship or, whatever normally happens under senior awards, or is that just really complicated from a logistics standpoint?
Well, it pushes the window back. I don't think senior awards were going to be finalized until I think it's around the 15th of May or something like that. It was a little bit later than what we were looking. It was going to be a week later than what we were looking to start. So if we push the video back, then I think that's going to push the final product back another week at least, or maybe more. But yeah, I mean, it could be done. Just like I said, I just want everybody to understand that if we say graduation on the last day of school is May 27th, understand this video may not be ready quite to air by the 27th. So that's the only caution I have to say.
David, I sent you an email late this afternoon from a company in Fayette County in Lexington that does these things. So they're experienced at putting these things together and doing it. So you might reach out to them. And I know we've got some locals, and my preference would be for somebody local to do it if they have the capabilities of doing it. But you might reach out to this group in Lexington. They might give us an idea on pricing and what can be done and what kind of time frame we'd be looking at.
Okay.
Mr. Boland, has the site-based council weighed in on this concept?
There were 2 of the members on the meeting today. The whole council has not. I had 2 of them sit in on I think there were 13 to 15 people I had on the meeting today, and 2 of them were on there with me.
Okay, thank you. And I suppose it still leaves the option open of future times, potentially a homecoming this fall or even the next fall, that, we could try to get the senior class of 2020 back together and do special recognition, to supplement this.
Yeah, I think the door could be wide open on that. I think, if nothing else, I think homecoming or something like that would be a great opportunity. I mean, that's assuming that football season is able to proceed as normal, which may not even be happening right now, so from what I'm hearing.
Do I dare mention prom? Have you put it out there that that's canceled?
Well, the last letter I sent, I said it was off the table. All efforts were being focused on graduation. I just don't have any idea right now how, given just the sheer magnitude of the number of students, how we could even manage to pull that off.
Yeah, I don't either.
Even by August, I think, because we're talking 600 to 700 people.
Yeah, I doubt you would have any venue that would be able to rent to you as well. I think they're under the same guidelines as everybody else.
There's a lot. I mean, it's like you mentioned the awards and all that. We had talked about trying to publicize that, maybe even doing some type of possibly doing a live stream when we announce like senior scholarships on a certain night. Maybe live stream those names as they're read out. Congratulations, so-and-so scholarship, and the different awards. It's just hard. It's hard to really come up with plans right now because it seems like everything's changing. But I would, if possible, I do like the idea of adding that to some of the seniors. The cards, the cards as it's read, they come across the stage. It's just if we do that, it's going to push us back a little bit because we're at the mercy right now of some of the local agencies or benefactors who sponsor some of these scholarships because they're pushed to the fact that they can't come together in groups either to vote. So they're kind of doing it remotely or over the phone, talking with each other. So I just can't say that we could get that done, by the 7th. I think that would be pushing it to be able to get that done.
One of the things, the advantages of having the photographer in there with the GRC backdrop and the photo op, you're going to have some photos of the seniors in a cap and gown. So if you do something, you'll have actual photos of the students in a cap and gown that can go with an awards something at a later date.
Yeah, and I think if when you're sitting there doing the photo op, it's an opportunity for the parents too, or the guardians, whoever's with them, if they want to get in a picture, hey, get up there with them. And, we had envisioned like doing the stage, really decorating it out, getting some nice, doing a lot of greenery, a lot of, red and white flowers and stuff like that. Make it special, maybe do some special banners in the back and, really have the stage looking nice, make it something special, the best we can do. And then having another like photo op set up and, it could be in the gym, it could be in the foyer. It's just, we want to make sure that when you exit, you don't exit the same way you entered. That way people are not crisscrossing. So that, tries to minimize contact as much as possible. And like I said, the doors will be propped open. So you're not touching doors, not having to touch doors or open them for you or anything.
I know, Jared, back to your point about prom, who knows, maybe we could, a year from now, typically you don't come back for a class reunion after just 1 year, but who knows, maybe we could get this class to come back a year later and have a prom during their first class reunion. I don't know. Instead of just saying never, give them some hope about that.
I think it depends on what news media you listen to right now. Some of the colleges are, certain colleges are not even planning to start back. It's all going to be virtual online to start the fall. And it's just hard. It's hard to make any concrete plans right now because of it. If we knew that we'd be in phase 2 or phase 3, yeah, sure, great, we can plan it. But right now, we have no idea. And I mentioned earlier, we've learned a lot of lessons. The one thing we know is that, being somebody that's got almost have 29 years in education, it's changed. Public education will never be the same. Technology is here. We've got to embrace it. We're going to go one-to-one. And I've even toyed with the ideas. I'm going to use all my funds right now to increase technology and try to get us at least where we're at 1,200 units by the fall, pending availability. But if we have to start school, should we have to start school, even students who don't have internet access, maybe we load their assignments, preload them onto a Chromebook or onto a thumb drive and give it to the kids so they can work from home. They don't necessarily have to have internet. But I think we've got to be innovative And same thing, you know, it's what we're trying to do with graduation. I know a couple of you got kids, and I mean, I get it. I really do. I just, you know, we're trying to do the very best we can right now to honor the kids. And that's, you know, I want to do right by them the best that we can.
Well, again, I want to thank you for everything you're doing. I guess the question I have is, what do you need from us in order to move forward to put together the details of the virtual graduation?
I think the big thing is just trying to get up with a, you know, videographer, somebody that can help do the production. You know, technically we could video it. I don't know that it would be at the same quality as a professional would, but the biggest problem is the editing, putting it together. I mean, and like I said, if it's, you know, we can put it together, it may not be alphabetical. That, you know, may not be the ideal one, but it would probably be the easiest, quickest to turn around. If we try to do it each segment alphabetical, then it's going to take a lot more time to edit 350 clips. You know, we've already talked today about trying to schedule time to get, once we can identify the valedictorian, salutatorian, you know, go ahead and get with those students, scheduling a time for them to come in and do their address, tape it. And like I said, we'll do the invocation, benediction, tape those, and those will be easy. Those will be easy to do, to splice those in. It's just, you know, I guess it's really, if we want to, you know, I'll be honest, it's up to the, you know, I mean, we'll need some financial support on this video piece so we can handle everything else, I think. But, you know, if we want it alphabetical, understand the cost is probably going to increase. I mean, I couldn't give you a cost right now because I really don't know. I haven't spoken to anyone, but we'd have to probably try to get at least 2 or 3 estimates for you on that.
Well, I'm usually not in a position to be encouraging that we spend money, but, you know, in this particular case, I don't want us to cut corners for these seniors. And, you know, we were going to have to rent a stage. We were going to have to rent chairs. And there was even a discussion a couple meetings ago about doing some special preparation to use the football field. And that, you know, that concept was out there. So I don't think we want to be foolish in spending money, but it wouldn't bother me to, you know, to spend a reasonable amount to be able to put together something that kids would be proud of.
I think they'll do that. I think the parents, the kids and the parents will do that. I think the public would appreciate it too. I mean, we're going to do the best production we can. You know, the videos, the videography, and, you know, that's the cost. That's going to be your big cost. We can decorate it. We'll trust me. I mean, when I do productions, they're pretty good. It'll look good. We'll make sure it looks good. It'll be as nice as we possibly can make it. It's just, you know, the big question I'll put at you right now is if we want to wait until after the senior awards are finalized, just understand that's going to push back, you know, the filming. It'll push it back a week at best. Which could delay you know, and it may not. I don't know what kind of turnaround these companies have. So I just want to throw that out there. I understand, you know, if something happens and we push it back and do the scholarships and get into that next week or so of May, then we may not make May 27th. That's one. I guess.
I think it's going to be key to if we're moving forward with this after tonight, that we contact the folks that do the videography and see what kind of time frame, and they may have some suggestions as how to do it and do it in a better way. And especially if we're talking to the one in Lexington that does this, that's what they do. That's what they specialize in. They do these kinds of things every year for schools. So I think they can shed some light on the time and maybe give us a little more direction on what to expect as far as the time frame and everything. And we can kind of plan from there.
When we were, I guess, let me look here. I was looking at the calendar. Originally, we were looking at like May 7, 8, and 9 as the tentative dates to try to start taping. So, you know, we're looking at actually moving it up a little over a week because I think, and I may be wrong, but I think, and I could be wrong on that date, but I was thinking it was May 15th. It may be a little earlier, but it's going to be, we would at least lose a week, guaranteed a minimum of a week if we go for that option.
I believe we are going to have to get on a professional person really quick because we're not the only school that's going to come up with this. So other people are going to be looking at this, and I would encourage you guys as soon as possible. And I got a little chuckle out of Scott with his reasonable. I just wonder if his reasonable is equal to my reasonable. So, but I do think we're going to have to jump on it quick.
I think it could be. It could be a first for us, Gordon.
Okay, so what you're needing from us is just basically the go-ahead to start getting prices, David. Is that what you're wanting?
Well, I mean, to go ahead and proceed with with a virtual graduation ceremony or in some form or fashion. I mean, I don't know what else. I think we've got to get something out to the students so they know. I think the public needs, I think several of you have been inundated today with phone calls from various people in the town and stuff. And, I talked to two of the ladies today, called me, and I appreciate them dearly. And I know their heart's in the right place, and they're doing everything they can. They want to make this right for the kids. And we just got to all be on the same page, work towards the same goal. And, everybody just needs to understand we're doing the best we can. And yeah, we're going to proceed with a virtual graduation. I don't want us to pin down a date as to what that's going to be right now until after we get with some of these people and find out how long it's going to take to turn the video. That's the only caution I will throw out there to you. And I don't know how you go about doing that.
Okay. I received an email just a few minutes ago. I'll forward it to you from someone that's interested.
I just don't want to put a promise out or say something that we can't deliver on. I think that's the worst thing we could do right now. So, we go ahead and proceed with the virtual graduation. We're going to turn it as quickly as we can turn it. I promise you that. We're going to be at the mercy of some of the video editors too. That's, like I said, the only caution I want to put out there.
So now you're looking for us to, I'm sorry, did I step on someone's foot?
Go ahead, Scott.
You're looking for us just to approve the concept of a virtual graduation and then leave it up to you all for right now to determine what the dates would be once you determine what a videographer will allow. And then Mr. Christian, his folks could compare what budget's already out there for this graduation, because there is a budget for it already set up, and see how that matches up with the videographer cost. And if it's something beyond that he needs our input on, we could always briefly get back together and say, yeah, we approve if it needs an additional amount above that. Is that is that where we are?
I think so. I think you were at 120,000 on the covering for the football field, so we'll try to keep it under that.
I was not actually in on that 120 at this point.
Sounds reasonable.
That's what I
So would anybody like to, you need a motion. So would anybody like to make a motion?
Do we need
I'll
to
make
make,
Go ahead, Bill. What'd you say?
I said, do we need to make a motion?
That was the impression that I just got, that
Okay.
to put the actual virtual graduation in play. Is that not correct? Is that not what I just heard from everybody?
I don't know if you need, I'm not sure about the Robert's Rules of Order here, but I just want to make sure we're all on the same page before I start putting the wheels in motion on this. That
Right.
we don't change our in a week.
I'll go ahead and make the motion that we approve the concept of a virtual graduation in place of the in-person graduation that we're prevented from having this year.
And I'll second.
Wait.
The language
That's
of
not-
that, yeah, you go ahead, Ashley.
No, same thing, Bill, you were gonna say. I'll let you go. You've got the senior.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I like the verbiage of replace in-person graduation. I don't think that's necessary. We don't know what the next few months will hold. I'm still optimist, so I don't care for that verbiage of replacing in-person. That still could happen at some point.
That's fine. Shall we just then, would we revise that wording to simply be to approve that a virtual graduation ceremony occur this year? that wording reasonable for everyone?
Probably at the earliest time to the normal graduation time or something along those lines, just so that we know that's going to happen first, and if there's possibly consideration for anything else, that's still there at some other point.
Do we need to nail down the date at this point?
I don't think you can till we get the
I would
videographer.
just like to leave it open-ended then, just allow a motion to allow a virtual graduation ceremony for this class of 2020.
I feel better about that than the original motion myself. Bill,
Yeah.
are you good with that?
I'm good. I think Sherry seconded that though.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Roll call vote. District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
and District 5 is yes. Motion carries 5-0. All right, Paul, moving along.
The last thing that I had on here, and I'll ask Alicia to speak to it, we've gone through looking at budget and what this situation we're in has done to us. I can tell you before she starts, where we're hurt the most is in food services. Understanding that food services, the money that's the matching because of the number of meals that's not being served compared to what was, that's a loss for them. There are some things coming down. We just had a webinar today with the commissioner about the elementary and secondary act that's coming to put some money in. We know what that amount's going to be for our district. That amount's going to be $1.2 million that we're going to get. That money can go toward working toward some of our losses, and it can also go toward, you can use that toward technology. So I agree with David. We're going to need to probably be as quickly as possible to a 1-to-1 in computer student ratio in this district. So there's going to be some things there. There's also a CARE Act that's coming down that the state has about $43 or $44 million coming, and that'll be divided up among the districts. So there's going to be some more money there. That money can go toward technologies and things there. It's a little more limited what you can use it for than what the elementary and secondary funds can be used for. We're already looking at ways that we can utilize some of that to do some interventionist type activities with kids to try to catch back up, because there's a gap. There's a 9-week gap in here. Now we've virtually lost a quarter of our instructional time face to face this year. So there's going to be a gap. So we're looking at ways that we can incorporate that money to do something there. That money's good. It doesn't have to be spent. I think you've got until 2022 to use it. So we can be, very careful about prudent how we do that and look at that. But there's going to be some funds coming in now with Becky and her food service. And one advantage that we're going to have, probably we're already looking at continuing the same food service delivery methods that we're using now, as long as we stay in this state of emergency and the gatherings are set at the way they are. We're going to continue to utilize the same sites, utilize the same routes, and we're going to continue that on beyond the end of May and on into June and July, and as long as we can. We're going to keep all sites. We're doing a lot of meals so that's going to generate more income throughout the summer than what we've generally been seeing. So that will help get Becky's group back on their feet. But Alicia's going to talk to you about other areas that we've identified to where we know there's going to be money that's not going to be spent, and what that's going to look like in carryovers and what those amounts are. And I think you received a copy of that, and she's going to go through that with you real quick. Alicia?
Good evening, everyone. Was everyone able to access that document so that when I'm walking through this, you know what you're looking at?
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to start with the top section there. We identified some areas that we think we're going to have savings in, which is substitutes, some extra overtime of payroll, and then our fuel costs, our energy costs, and we listed field trips just because those are not occurring anymore. But as you can see, there's a zero there of savings because we've actually already spent that budget to date. So there is no savings there. But that column is the savings. So with not having subs for the remainder of the year, we're estimating with benefits that we're going to save about 210,000. The overtime extra service about 100,000, fuel 68, energy 145. So collectively, and this is conservative, we think we're going to save roughly that 525,000 in budgeted expenses that we year to date, as of April, looking at what's available, don't think going forward we're going to spend that. Does that make sense? Any questions?
No question for me.
Does that energy include, utilities at the school, since I'm sure,
Yes, that
we're
is
not
all utilities for the
conditioning?
entire district.
Okay.
Yes.
Keep in mind, that's probably a pretty conservative figure. However, keep in mind, we're not totally shut down in those buildings. We still have offices going, and we're still going to have other parts of the building, and we're starting to move into now a summertime work type thing where they're starting to clean rooms, wax, and do those things. So we went conservatively on that because we know we're going to be heating and cooling in certain parts of the building as the custodians move throughout the building to work for the remainder of the year.
Correct. And so the column next to that, the April, May, June 2019, I just wanted you all to see, like, this same time last year, that's what we spent for that 3-month period. And so May and June is going to be considerably less this year. But that was just kind of a comparison to know kind of typically in a quarter what we would have spent on that, those items. Next to that, I just compared the two Aprils, current April to last April a year ago. And as you can see, we're down about $310,000, almost $311,000 that this same time last year we would have spent within this month. So that's a good little chunk of money, which is included in that 500. So that's part of that estimation of what we've not spent. But I just wanted you all to kind of see that comparison of where we stand. And again, this is conservative. It could be more dollars than this, but I just wanted to give somewhat of a projection of what we think on the general fund, what that's going to look like. The area that's labeled all general fund purchasing budget codes, that is a quick snapshot of where we stood yesterday when I pulled these numbers. So taking payroll out, because we are still continuing to pay our staff contracts. So payroll is still going to be paid out that we have budgeted, other than that substitutes and extra overtime areas that are listed up there. The budget is 10.2 million roughly. You can see year to date, we have spent, and this is as of yesterday, almost 8 million, 7.9. There are PO encumbrances, so promises to pay, things we have ordered, just not paid yet. So we're looking at right now, 8.7 million is definitely projected to be spent by the end of the year. And so you take that off of our budget and you add in that substitutes and extra time. We're looking at right now 1.8 million of our budget that we could spend with purchase orders has not been spent or committed at this point. So that's 18% is the percentage of that 10 million that we've just not spent yet. And so that's just where we stand right now. Typically, that number is much less at this point, but due to being shut down, we've not had a whole lot of expenditures this past month. And that's an area Mr. Christie had mentioned that we are going to be very frugal with for the remainder of the year and look at the specific needs for all the areas that are truly needed and not spend anything that's not really needed at this point, just because we don't know how everything's going to fall out. We are going to get those extra funds that he talked about from the state. And so that will help out greatly. But again, as Mr. Boland pointed out, we don't know what the beginning of the next school year is going to look like. And we probably do need to kind of ramp up a lot of our technology for the entire district. And those new grants coming down can be used for technology and also for our food service. Those are the two big areas that those grants can be used. The elementary secondary grant, that 1.2, we know we're going to get. We were told it's very flexible. So it can be used on quite a bit of stuff. So that's, sitting down as an admin team determining what the best use of that is. But as far as general fund dollars, that's kind of where we stand, is that snapshot of that spreadsheet you all got. At the very bottom, I just wanted to kind of point out a possible savings on next year, because as Mr. Boland actually said, fall sports are kind of up in the air. We've heard that those may not occur come this fall. And so if we did not have fall sports stipends, there is a potential of a savings on the budget of $135,000.
Can we stop right there for just a
Yes,
second?
absolutely. Questions?
Now, is that a recommendation or something from KDE? Or is that just something we came up with?
That came from a conference call with the commissioner and KDE, and actually KSHAA weighed in on it. He had talked with them also, and then Julian Tackett followed up, and that's a recommendation they said that you may want to consider. They didn't say whether they were recommending it or not, but that's something that you may want to consider. We went on with our spring sports because some of those had started, they had actually started to work with kids. We're honoring the contracts because the folks this spring were already contracted. So we're honoring those, but they're pointed out to us that you may want to consider, and we did that, but we do it each year anyway. All of our extracurricular activity stipends, they receive what we call the pink slip, or the non-renewal, that they have to be hired back, so that we're not committed to pay that. Right now, we're not committed to pay that $135,000.
I understand all that, Paul, but I'm just saying, you got people that move here to take a coaching job. And we've got people that do an excellent job of not just out there on that field on a Friday night or a Tuesday night, but people that actually work with kids in the building. And I'll just be honest with you, from my standpoint, that's a slap in the face to these people right here. And I'm embarrassed that we would put this on here. I really am. I mean, if I'm a football coach right now that just got our first playoff victory in 10 years, and I'm reading this, I'm hauling my rear end out of this district. That's a slap in the face. I'm sorry.
Did anybody else have any comments they wanted to add, or Paul, did you have anything you wanted to say?
I was going to tell Lisa to go ahead and finish up if she wasn't through.
Okay.
Okay, so the last of that document is just so you could see the snapshot of where our schools sit with their Section 6 monies at this point, because obviously they've not been in session to spend these monies on their kids. So I just wanted you all to be aware going forward into the budget next year. This year we rolled forward, or they had requested, and we gave them monies they did not spend in the prior fiscal year of $49,000. Schools requested that to be carried into our current fiscal year. So as we sit right now, and all principals got an email yesterday for them to start looking at these funds to determine what they think their carry forward requests for next school year is going to be, and to really look at their expenses and see what needs to be done for their schools. And so that's just where those balances sit right now at $183,695. That's money that's going to be spent by the end of the year, or be asked probably carry forward into next fiscal year. I just wanted the board to be aware of that number, and that 183 is included in that 1.8 million above. Also, you were provided just the calculation document that you get for SEEK. KDE has already posted their calculation for the forecast SEEK for next school year. So I just wanted the board to also be aware of that and how that looks on our budget that we had put together for the draft budget. We were really banking on our growth this year and projecting our end of year numbers to be more like 4,788 is what we have put in the draft budget. But based on what KDE is calculating our SEEK at, they are using our 18-19 ADA end of year number, and that was 4,656. And so that does make, for what we put in the draft budget, go down roughly $179,000. So that's on the table. And as Mr. Christie talked about food services, it's going to be our recommendation to not charge them indirect costs next year, which we have had in the budget of $85,000, just because of the losses they have sustained at the end of this past month and will continue, whereas normal programming, what they would have received. Just so you can have an idea of what that looks like, Becky did estimate that number. She said for the month of March, she had actually lost, and this is a confirmed number, $30,350 is lost for that half a month of March of what she would have brought in compared to last year. And estimating for April for the next year, excuse me, let me find that number. She's estimating this month, once she calculates everything, she's going to have lost $283,000. So that's a huge chunk to food service that they are missing out on in revenues just because of normal operations are not taking place for them. She did start the year with over $900,000 beginning balance, so she is going to not have to be supplemented at the end of this year, but she is eating into that beginning balance of her budget. And so next year for her, she's going to be starting at a much lower rate and trying to play catch up. So that's one of the reasons, $85,000 is not a whole lot of money on our general fund side compared to that food service side. And then it was also up for consideration, if the board would approve it, and we could bring this back on the May meeting, that the 3 months left, April, May, and June of this year, not charging her indirect costs, which would be, I'm sorry, I misread that number earlier. That's the 30,000 number, to not charge that for the remainder of the year. So that's just kind of considerations of, how we're ending the year and things, how they've come down the pike for food service and general fund. Be happy to answer any questions.
Ms. Ellis, can I ask a question about that ADA number?
Absolutely.
So is that an option they gave us, or did they say we had to go with the 2018 and 2019 number and we couldn't choose another alternate
That is
that might give us more growth?
Our first 3 months of SEEK have been calculated at this point, forecast. It is posted. That is what it is. So this is our July, August, and September payments are going to be based on this SEEK number. Now come our tentative SEEK that they will post in September, which will then fund October, November, December, January, February, and March. That's based on the second month growth factor report of that physical year. So being that we've had growth this year and we're projecting growth next year, I foresee that SEEK number will jump up quite a bit and we'll get more money in that next 6 month period. But for now, the first 3 months of the school year are starting with this SEEK amount.
And that was given to, that we were told on that they were going to use last year's
Yes.
ADA. They told us that. We didn't have an option on that.
Okay, that's the bad news. I guess the good news is potentially just as a quarter year impact at this point to us.
Yeah.
That's what we're hoping, yes.
I'd want to add to that also that I've spoken with our fleet insurance carrier, Liberty Mutual. We're going to be getting a rebate on that because we've had buses now that's going to be sitting empty and not moved other than from the bottom of the lot up to the maintenance building. And that's all that they've been moved with the exception of the 3 food service buses we're using. There is going to be a rebate. I don't know how much that is. That's not calculated into this at all.
No,
It's going to be an additional amount that would go into that. And then I'm also going to reach out to our student insurance because we're doing the same thing there with student insurance. Now that one may be a little more questionable because we still have, I don't know if they're going to do that or not, but I'm going to at least reach out to them and see if there's going to be any kind of a rebate based on the fact that we've not had students in the building that they're not insuring from the middle of March until the middle of August. So, and as long as we're not having any summertime sports or anything, we're not insuring any students for anything right now. So that will be one that we'll reach out to also. And I want to go quickly, Gordy. Yeah.
I just wanted to ask, what have you heard? I know we've all been in situations there to where halfway through the year, the governor realizes that the budget's not where it should be and they freeze. that seek money. Are you hearing anything at all about state government, about what may happen with the budget? I do think it's something we got to keep in mind. I think most of us that are at least my age, I'm not going to put you up in there with that, but have seen that happen before where SEEK was frozen in that second half and we didn't get that, the remainder of that.
There's been no discussion with the commissioner or anybody from KDE at this point. And in fact, that governor's, the CARE money they're talking about, the 43 million, I think that's the one that they're going to get. We should know that amount by the 27th of this month. So they're going to move pretty quick. And that was the thing in the webinar today that they made a point of. They're going to be moving very quickly and getting this money out to the district so that it could be used even some this year if we need to, possibly, and over the summer to put things in place for next fall. So I've not heard anything. I think Kevin is one that if there's something on the horizon, he's pretty good about being up front with it. And there's not been any conversation about any holding back this year at all. And I'd like to go back if I could to the coaching thing. Gordy, this isn't something new. I don't know if you know that or not. This is nothing new. They were doing that to every coach before I came in as superintendent. That's done every year because you have coaches that move, leave, and everything. So they do them, and the principals, they have the conversation. The coaches know that they're going to be brought back.
Oh, Paul, I know that. I'm not talking about the pink slip. I know that happens all the time. What I'm saying is the possibility of a coach. You're saying you're not going to pay him.
No,
he's been coaching for years, but I mean, well, that's what it's saying. You're saying
it's saying that if
pay those things,
and that was a recommendation that came from KDE. If you're
that's what I'm saying. That's what I asked. If they're saying they're recommending you not do that, or
they're saying if you
don't have a coach moving, and it's just not a good way to support people. And I mean, if we want to get right down to it. Do we take half of the athletic director's fee away? Do we come back to principals? Principals have got part of principals' stipends comes in there to be able to do after-school activities. Do we take money away from the principals? What do we do there? I mean, I just think it's a bad thing to put down there because I think you're directing it toward a group of people. And I'm not saying it should never be in a discussion if we were short on money, but I just think it's a bad thing to come out and put it out that way.
Well, I will say that any extracurricular stipend that anybody in this district receives every year, at the end of the year, they receive a pink slip and they have to be put back in place for the next year. Now, the principals, when they tell them that, they give them their pink slip, the conversations had, we're going to do it. It's just a budgetary thing at the end of the year. So but it was being done that way when I came in as superintendent. I don't know how long before that it was. I know when I came here, when Ed Musgrove was here, it was done. That's when I think a lot of it started about that time. But so it's been being done for about 15 years. The coaches know that they're going to be coming back. The coaches, in fact, at some point even asked for this because that gives them the opportunity each year to fill their assistant coaching positions because they can start over each year. And that's why you see from year to year, you see different people in there because they didn't bring somebody back. So
you're on the wrong path of what I'm on. What I'm saying is that we know we pink slip people every year, but every year we don't come back to the board and say, guys, we can save $135,000 this year if we don't hire a football coach, a soccer coach, and go through all that. I mean, I think putting it on here, you can't say right now you're putting on here, this is a possible savings for this year. We don't ever do that. Now, I understand about the pink slip part of all that. I mean, that's been going on forever and should be going on. What I'm saying is that when you put this out here, you are saying to those people that you're on the chopping block, you're not important. If we don't have, to me, if we don't have football, we don't have soccer, we don't have that, those people still get their pay, just like everybody else would.
Well, and that's a conversation that we would have at that time. I would say too that we've never put out any of this stuff to anybody anytime about all these cuts and all these possible savings here that we're putting out to you now, because we've never been in this situation to even have to have this conversation or to be able to have this conversation. It's being done. The coaches are aware of it. And this is not saying that they're not going to be back, and it's not even communicated to them that way. I'm sure Mr. Boland and the guys with their coaches that they're wanting to bring back have had that conversation when they gave them that letter that they do every year. So this was
You
just,
think that Mr. Bowen had a conversation? You think he had a conversation with the football coach? Say, here's your pink slip. You're probably not going to come back next
no,
year.
I don't think he did. I don't,
Well,
I don't,
why do we put it on here? That's what I'm saying. The rest of this stuff is about programs that we have. This is about individuals that we put the trust of our kids in for after-school activities.
Okay, I think honestly, you two are talking about two different things, and that can be kind of talked amongst yourselves after this meeting. But I think you two are on two different pages. Was there anything else you need to discuss, Paul? You're muted, Paul. Paul, you're muted.
sorry about that. No, that's all I've got unless somebody has any other questions or anything. That's all I had to, that was on the list of things that we talked about at the last meeting that you wanted to come back with.
Okay.
Mr. Chris, I do have one other question. Did I just step on somebody? I'm sorry.
You stepped on Becky. Becky, go ahead.
I just wanted to confirm the dollar amount. I know Alicia said earlier she had misquoted the March amount because I wanted everybody to know what the total amount for March loss already in revenue was $98,908. And then the estimated loss for April, of course, we're only 3/4 of the way through, was the 283,707 that she quoted. So for those 2 months together, that's a total of $382,615. So I just wanted everybody to have those numbers written down correctly, so that they understood where the food service account was. And then, as Alicia stated, that we have a contingency fund, but the more we keep dipping into that contingency fund, as I start next school year, that fund will be obviously majorly decreased. And so that is the reason for the request, or the look for, or the look at the option for not taking indirect costs, even though that only will help us just a little bit. But at this point, I'm at the thought of thinking every little bit helps. And we're doing everything we can to save costs on food, using up what we already have in all of our freezers and coolers from all the schools, combining all that inventory to meet our demands for right now on a daily basis. So we look at that every day to make sure that we're using up everything we can, so that we're not having to spend extra money to purchase more than we need to at this point.
Also,
Mrs. Lowry. Mrs. Lowry, to go along with the 382,000 in lost revenue, what's the corresponding decrease in food costs, though, for the meals that you didn't sell, that you didn't have to make? You all have an approximate amount on that?
I don't have that total right now, but I can figure it out. I mean, we're still purchasing food. We're not just we're just not purchasing as much as we have. But I can get that to you all.
That cost would be lowered, Scott. You're right on that. But also in that elementary, secondary, Recovery Act fund money that they're putting out there, the 1.2 that we know that we're going to be getting, that money can be used toward some food service things also. So there is some recovery area in there too.
Yes, and just one more thing. I have applied for a couple of grants. I haven't heard back from them yet, but I am hoping that we are going to get some funding from these grants to help us out as far as purchasing food and continuing to pay payroll.
Thank you, Becky. Scott, was that what you were going to question, or did you have something else you wanted to?
I think that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Did anybody else have anything they wanted to add? If not, then I am looking for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thanks. Motion by Mr. Talby,
I'll second it.
second by Mr. Heisel. All right. District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
and District 5 is yes. Motion carries 5-0, and we are adjourned at 8:56.